The Hartman house looked picture-perfect from the outside. It sat on a quiet suburban street in Denver, Colorado, white siding, clean hedges, and a red door that had been repainted just last month. Inside, fairy lights glowed softly across the dining room, casting a warm hue over the dinner table set for three. Balloons hovered lazily in the corners, and a cake box sat unopened on the counter. 17 going on 30, David said, smiling as he adjusted the candles on the cake. Why do I feel like you were just 6 yesterday running around in a Wonder Woman cape? Emily rolled her eyes but smirked. Because you're getting old, Dad. It's okay to admit it. Julia laughed, pouring lemonade into mismatched glasses. He refused to wear his glasses this morning, said they make him look distinguished. They do, David shot back, like a professor who sleeps through his own lectures. The three of them laughed, the kind of laugh that felt easy, almost reflexive. The house smelled like cinnamon and roast chicken. Family, familiarity, warmth. But just under that warm surface, Emily felt something else. The tightness behind her mother's smile, the glances between her parents that lasted 1 second too long. She'd been feeling it for months now. Something had changed. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, but subtle shifts that only a daughter who paid close attention would notice. Later that night, after cake and presents and obligatory photos by the fireplace, Emily sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. Her parents were in the kitchen, talking low, laughing occasionally. She didn't hear everything, but she caught a few words. Next weekend, too soon. Only if we stick to the schedule. She doesn't need to know right now. Emily frowned. Her thumb stopped mid-scroll. Then the fridge door opened, someone poured wine, and the conversation was replaced by clinks and laughter. At 11:42 p.m., long after her parents had gone upstairs, Emily came down to get her charger from the living room. As she plugged it in, she noticed her mother's phone glowing on the coffee table. Unlocked. She hesitated, then picked it up. The most recent message was from someone named Connor. Can't stop thinking about last weekend. When can I see you again? Her heart skipped. She tapped the conversation. There were photos, voice notes, and a series of texts that made her stomach churn. Mom. With someone else. Emily sat in the dark for several minutes, holding the phone like it might explode. She wasn't sure what felt worse, that it existed or that her mom hadn't even bothered to hide it. The next morning, nothing had changed. Julia was humming in the kitchen, making avocado toast. David was outside watering the front lawn. Ordinary things. Normal things. Emily stared at them through the window and felt like she was watching strangers play her parents on TV. By noon, she decided to follow her dad after he left for his Saturday morning therapy supervision meeting. He didn't see her car 3 blocks behind. She watched him park at a coffee shop downtown not far from Union Station. 10 minutes later, a woman walked in, young brunette, confident. David stood, hugged her, kissed her cheek. They talked for an hour. He smiled at her in ways Emily hadn't seen him smile at Julia in years. Emily drove home in silence, no music, no thoughts, just a slow-burning knot in her chest that kept twisting. That night at dinner, Julia complimented the sauce David made. "You added rosemary," she said. "Tastes amazing." David smiled. "I thought you'd notice." Emily looked at both of them. "How long have you two been lying to me?" They both froze. Julia set down her fork. "Emily, what are you talking about?" "I saw the texts, Mom. I saw Dad at the cafe with someone else. Are you both cheating on each other, or is this some kind of twisted agreement?" The silence was immediate and suffocating. David's voice came low. It's complicated. Emily scoffed. That's a cop-out. Julia reached across the table. Sweetheart. Don't, Emily snapped, pushing her chair back. Don't call me that like nothing's wrong. She walked out of the room, heart pounding. Behind her, neither parent moved. The perfect family dinner was over. The illusion had cracked. Emily didn't speak to her parents for 3 days. Not beyond short answers, not beyond what was absolutely necessary. She moved through the house like a ghost, quiet, distant, and always watching. The tension was no longer subtle. It had found shape, mass, and weight. It sat with them at every meal, followed them into every room. On the 4th day during dinner, Julia finally broke the silence. I know you're angry, she said softly, but can we talk, really talk? Emily kept her eyes on her plate. Why now you've been really talking to someone else this whole time? David winced. Julia put down her fork. Look, I never wanted you to find out this way. I never wanted you to find out at all, if I'm honest. That's not comforting, Emily muttered. It's not meant to be, Julia replied. It's just the truth. David spoke up. We never lied to hurt you, Em. We just didn't tell you because you thought I was too stupid or too young to understand, Emily cut in. No, Julia said quickly, because we didn't want to burden you with adult decisions. Emily finally looked up, like deciding to sleep with people outside your marriage. The silence that followed was suffocating. David took a breath. We have an agreement, Emily, a set of rules, boundaries. It's not cheating. Sounds a lot like cheating, Emily said, just with extra paperwork. Julia tried to smile, but it didn't land. It's more common than you think. Open relationships are nuanced. Emily stood up, chair screeching back. So you're saying this is normal, that I should be okay with you both having side quests while playing happy couple at home? It's not about playing anything, Julia said. Yes, it is, Emily snapped. You pretend everything's fine. You take cute selfies. You say, I love you over pancakes. But it's all performative. You've both been lying to me and maybe to yourselves. David's voice cracked slightly. We do love each other. We've made this work for 4 years without it hurting anyone. Well, Emily said, grabbing her plate, that record's broken now. She left the room. Later that night, Julia sat in her home office staring at a blinking cursor on a blank email draft. The subject line read, Connor, we need to talk. She closed the laptop without typing anything. Meanwhile, David scrolled through his phone, hovering over Naomi's name. He typed, Things are tense. I don't know if this was a mistake. He didn't hit send. Upstairs, Emily sat cross-legged on her bed with her laptop open. She wasn't on TikTok or Instagram. She was reading. Forums, subreddits, articles, titles like, I found out my parents are poly, AMA. How to deal with discovering your parents are in an open marriage. Adult secrets and the emotional fallout on teens. Every sentence made her stomach twist. The next morning, Emily skipped school. She walked into the kitchen just as Julia was pouring coffee. You're not dressed, Julia said. I'm not going, Emily replied. You can't just, I'm not going, she repeated sharper. Not until we have a real conversation. Julia leaned against the counter, cup in hand. Okay, let's talk. Emily sat down at the table, staring her mother down. How long has this been going on? Julia exhaled. 4 years. And Dad's known the whole time. He's part of it. He agreed to it. We both did. So, rules, Emily asked. What does that mean? Do you have to ask permission to sleep with other people? There are check-ins, agreements. We prioritize honesty. Emily laughed bitterly. Honesty, that's rich. Julia didn't flinch. We didn't want you to feel unsafe. You didn't want me to feel, period. Emily. You're my mom, Emily said, voice shaking. You were supposed to teach me what love looked like. Instead, I got this curated version where everyone's smiling and dying inside. Julia looked down. We thought it was the healthiest way to move forward. Emily stood up. Well, it didn't work. She walked toward the stairs, then paused. Just so you know, she said over her shoulder, I'm not angry because you're in an open marriage. I'm angry because you both hid behind a lie and called it love. Julia didn't follow her. When David came home later that night, Emily didn't come downstairs. Julia didn't say much. They ate in near silence again. This time, no one pretended it was normal. Emily stayed gone for 2 nights. Not far, just at her best friend Nora's place, but she didn't answer texts or calls from her parents. When she returned on Sunday evening, she didn't say anything. Just walked past her mom in the hallway, dropped her backpack by her door and closed it. Julia stood there for a full minute, unsure whether to knock or let her be. She chose silence. In the meantime, David sat alone in his car outside Naomi's apartment complex. He didn't go inside. He hadn't seen her since the argument with Emily. The last text Naomi had sent was short. You said this was balanced. It's not anymore. You're retreating, and I'm not built for secret roles. He didn't respond. He just stared at the screen until it dimmed, then drove away. That night, the house felt like it had fewer walls. Everything echoed. Even the clink of dishes in the sink seemed louder than usual. Julia sat on the porch with a glass of wine, scrolling through old photos on her phone. Smiling selfies, hiking trips, matching Christmas pajamas. It all felt like someone else's life. She clicked on a photo from 3 years ago, a blurry shot of her and Connor laughing behind a downtown food truck. She saved it to a hidden folder without thinking. The next afternoon, Connor messaged, I'll be in Denver next week. Would you want to talk? Julia stared at the message for a long time before replying, maybe. That Friday, David came home early from school. Julia was in the kitchen. Emily was upstairs, headphones on, drawing furiously in her sketch pad. We need to check in, David said. Julia turned. Now, yeah, it's been 3 weeks. That was the rule, right? She sighed, set the cutting board aside. Okay. They sat at the dining table like some kind of awkward corporate review. Emotional state, David asked, half joking. Julia looked at him seriously, rattled, off balance, still defensive. He nodded. Same. Are you still seeing Naomi? David hesitated. No, not since everything. Are you going to? I don't know. She sipped her water. I've been texting Connor. David looked at her. How far has that gone? Nowhere, she said, then softer yet. He leaned back, exhaled. We said transparency. I'm telling you, aren't I? You're telling me now. Julia folded her hands. This isn't just about rules anymore. It's about who we've become inside those rules. And I don't like her very much lately. David didn't respond for a moment. Then he said, we set rules so we could feel safe while trying something unsafe. And now it's not safe for any of us. That night, Julia met Connor. They went for drinks at a small bar downtown. At first, it was light stories, jokes, shared memories. Then the energy shifted. Julia told him she was in an open marriage. Connor raised an eyebrow. You always were brave, he said, or reckless. She laughed a little too hard, maybe both. They kissed. It wasn't impulsive, it wasn't chaotic, it was slow and knowing. Julia didn't stop it. She didn't sleep with him, but when she got home, she didn't lie either. David was awake, sitting in the living room. I kissed him, Julia said. He looked at her for a long time, then nodded once. I thought we had a rule, he said. We did, she replied, and I broke it. Was it worth it? She didn't answer. Upstairs, Emily had heard the front door open, then voices. She sat on her bed, eyes wide, heart pounding. She didn't know what she felt anymore, just that the people she called her parents were unraveling before her eyes. David didn't speak to Julia the entire next morning. Not out of anger exactly, but from the quiet weight of something breaking inside him. He made coffee, checked emails, fed the dog, all without a word. Julia moved around the house like someone waiting for a storm that already happened. By noon, he finally looked at her and said, "I don't know how to sit across from you and pretend nothing's shifted." Julia set down her mug. "I'm not asking you to pretend. But you're asking me to absorb it," he said. "You want me to hold the pain without reacting to it. That's not the agreement." "We never agreed to not feel hurt," Julia replied. "No," he said, "but we agreed to honesty before action." "I told you," after he snapped. "You told me after. Do you think that's what transparency means? Do you think that makes it okay?" Julia's voice dropped. "Do you want me to lie? Is that better?" "I want you to want me more than the thrill of breaking a rule." Julia flinched. It wasn't about the thrill. Then what was it about? She paused. "It was about not feeling like I was suffocating. About being seen by someone who doesn't know everything about me already." David's face tightened. "So now I'm the enemy because I know you too well." "No," she said. "You're the man I married and the man I built walls around." "Because I let you," he said. "Because I let us become this scheduled honesty, measured openness. And now we're just two people trying to avoid guilt by pre-approval." They stood in silence. The weight of what wasn't said thickened the air. Then a voice cut through it from the stairs. "You two suck at this." Emily stood halfway down, arms crossed, face pale but clear. They turned toward her, startled. "You keep talking like this is some noble experiment in modern love," she said. "But you're both just scared of being alone and too proud to admit it." Julia began. "No, you don't get to Emily me like I'm still 12 and don't understand nuance. I understand more than you think." David looked stunned. "We didn't mean to." "I don't care what you meant," Emily said. "What matters is the result. You taught me to tell the truth, and neither of you knows how to live it." Julia stepped forward. "I know this is hard for you." "This is betrayal," Emily said. "Not because you saw other people, but because you made me believe you were something you're not. You made me think love was stable, that it didn't shift under my feet when I wasn't looking." David whispered, "We never wanted to hurt you." Emily's eyes were glassy, but she didn't cry. "Well, you did." She turned and walked back upstairs. Neither parent followed her. That night, Julia didn't eat. David tried but pushed food around his plate. The dog lay at their feet, sensing the tension like a storm warning. The house was silent except for the low hum of the dishwasher. Julia looked at David and said, "Should we call Naomi? Tell her the truth?" David shook his head. "She already knows she's not coming back." "And Connor." "I deleted his number," she said. "I don't want to keep running." David leaned back. "So what now?" Julia looked around the kitchen, the photos on the fridge, the empty chairs, the vase of wilted flowers. "I don't know," she said, "but this house doesn't feel like ours anymore." Sunday morning came with overcast skies and the kind of quiet that felt intentional. No one played music, no one cooked breakfast. It was as if the house itself knew that noise would be unwelcome. Julia sat on the edge of the bed, holding her wedding ring between two fingers. She hadn't worn it in days. Across the room, David was gathering laundry like nothing had changed, though everything had. They barely spoke, not because they were angry, but because there was nothing left to argue. Silence had replaced strategy. Stillness had replaced negotiation. Downstairs, Emily poured herself cereal and stared out the kitchen window. The trees in the yard were beginning to turn. Fall was coming early this year. She pulled out her laptop and opened a blank document. The cursor blinked. She typed, "My parents taught me that love isn't clean. It's messy and layered and confusing. Sometimes it's selfless. Sometimes it's selfish. Sometimes it's both in the same breath. But love that hides behind rules can still break just as hard as love that breaks them." She sat back rereading the paragraph, then she kept writing. Upstairs, David paused at the bedroom door. "We can't go back," he said quietly. Julia nodded, still staring at the ring. "I know, but we could choose something else. Not pretend, not perform. Just something quieter, realer." She turned toward him. "What does that look like?" "I don't know yet," he said, "but I think we owe it to her to try." Julia looked down at the ring in her palm. "That version of us is gone." "Then let's build a new one," he said. "No contracts, no terms, just honesty, even if it's uncomfortable." Julia slipped the ring into her nightstand drawer. She didn't put it back on. Later that week, Emily submitted her college application essay. The title was "The Truth in Fracture." Her counselor said it was bold, unusually reflective for her age. Emily didn't explain. That Friday night, she came downstairs and sat at the table where so many conversations had unraveled. "I want to ask you both something," she said. Julia and David looked at her guarded. "I don't need you to be together just for me," Emily said. "But I need to know that if you're staying in this, whatever it is, you're staying with your eyes open. No more curated crap, no more performance. If you're going to love other people, fine. But stop trying to convince me this is normal if it isn't." David opened his mouth, then closed it. Julia looked down. Emily continued, "And if you're going to separate, just say it. Don't drag it out. I can handle the truth. I can't handle pretending." They sat in silence again, but this time it wasn't avoidance, it was absorption. Finally, Julia said, "You're right." David added, "We've spent too long building a version of us that felt safe instead of honest." Emily stood up, her voice softer now. "I don't want to lose either of you, but I need to believe in what I'm living in." Julia reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "Then we'll give you that. Not perfection, but truth." Emily nodded. That was enough. Later that night, Julia and David sat on the porch. No wine, no rules, just them. "I don't know if we can make it," Julia said. David shrugged. "Neither do I, but maybe we don't need to know." They watched the wind move the trees, quiet, tired, still present. Inside, Emily lit a candle in her room and opened her laptop again. She reread the essay, then smiled faintly and hit submit. Outside, the porch light flickered once, then steadied.